Well, there's no simple way to put this, but planning is shit. There's no question that it is. I'm not a big fan of planning at all. I think that it's been a task that has been commercialized and certainly made incredibly daunting by the growth and health and well-being and, spiritual sort of all the stuff out there in that self-help community. And today on Rethink Real Estate, we're talking with Julia Gentry, and we want to talk about why it's so difficult and maybe how to simplify and just start from one individual place. We go deeply into that conversation. Hope you guys enjoy. Hopefully it helps. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. I feel like it's been a hiatus for, what do you think? It's got to be 6-8 weeks since you and I have done a podcast episode.
It's sad, but I'm glad we're here.
Yes. Well, when you're setting the world on fire, it's really very difficult to get a hold of you.
That's so not true. My people will call your people.
Yeah. Did you notice in the email that I sent through today, did you notice I copied Amanda in?
You're doing so good.
Yeah, see?
Here's reality. We teach people how to treat us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Well, thank you.
It's good to be
Welcome
here.
back to Rethink.
We're talking about my favorite topic today.
Well, I just want to, I want to come in a bombshell moment is that why planning is shit. I've got to be honest though. Like Julia, you're the best person to talk to about this because it's so hard.
To what?
It's just difficult. I'm just saying planning in general is difficult. Like to sit down. One, I think that everybody, and this is a you saying, is that everybody loves the idea of planning, but when you're actually in it, it's so shit. It's those moments where you like, well, do I really need to know what I want? Like, or like, how do you, and again, I might just be reflecting and projecting on my own experience, but to sit down and go through it. And the thing that is really difficult is to actually try and think laterally and try and do it a little differently, because now that I've done it a couple of years now with you, or like through a template that you've given me, I go back to that same template and I look at my answers from the previous year and they don't change all that much and things get carried over. And it's sort of like, well, hang on a second. It's like your to-do list. Like, why write a list of 500 things when only 3 of them are going to get done and, 497 of them are actually going to be on tomorrow's list again as well.
Well, I think so. What you're saying, that doesn't make you crazy. That makes you human. So first and foremost, let's kind of set the record straight that it's less than 50% even will set New Year's resolutions or create plans whatsoever. And I think it's because it's exactly what you're saying. Why would I do this when it hasn't worked? Why would I do this when I'm not actually hitting my goals? Why would I do this when it seems impossible? Why would I do this when I'm busy anyway? So the problem first and foremost for most is that we take our attempt at doing this and how we've done it in the past and we throw it on our future, expecting a different result. But it's also why most people actually, more than most, aren't doing it, right? So there's that piece. Mm-hmm. But then the other piece that's really fascinating to me and where we've got to move in this is that let's just say that you're of the 43% of people who decide to set a New Year's resolution or create a plan, right? By the end of January, of that small percentage, there's only about 30% that are still sticking with that goal at the end of January. So within 30 days, the majority of people have quit. And by the end of February, only 9% of people are still on target with their goal. So we're talking like super, super low percentages.
Is that like the, do you know the book Atomic Habits?
Mm-hmm.
I've had it referred to me a few times. A lot of people really enjoy it. I listened to, and again, I hope I don't spoil it for a few people. I listened to a podcast with the guy who wrote that book. I can't read the book now just because of the guy who I listened to him on a podcast. I'm like, oh, he's a douchebag. But again, people probably think that about me. There's no question they do. But the part of that is it like something along the lines of like he mentioned this like in a business podcast around what his brand and like the Atomic Habit book is like it like just erupts in sales close to January 1st or in January in general. Like it just like he literally can count on a financial influx from people going after that Atomic Habit sort of book. is there a disassociation though, like between, I think like people think that they need to change their habits or change, like there has to be change. Why is it that people think there has to be change at the beginning of the year?
Well, that's so funny that you're saying this, because Travis and I just did a podcast on this, and he's like, I find this to be one of the most misleading holidays, and truly something that just becomes more of a consumer holiday than anything. He's like, why do we have to wait until January 1st to set a New Year's goal? Like, if you want something bad enough, I don't care if it's February 15th. I don't care if it's March 11th. Like, why do we wait for a specific day to feel good about something that maybe we sort of want? And I think that that's the problem, Ben. And I think what happens, and what you even spoke to, is that oftentimes what happens is that we use a day that in theory makes us feel good, even though every day should be a fresh start. Every day should be the day that we get to start, and tomorrow needs to be the day that you just don't stop. And when you have that mentality, you become the captain of your ship again. Now, the problem for most, though, is like people like yourself who go, okay, great, I'm going to create a plan, but then we reference back once a quarter or twice a year. And so part of what we do as a community is we encourage what I call dream stacking, which is, we know the concept of stack your wins every day. Small wins over time lead to large change. I want the large change. I don't want the small wins because the small wins are boring. And
Right.
I don't want to make the 20 calls again. And I don't want to have to door knock. And I don't want to have to do a few more push-ups. Like, I want the big wins. I want the big change. And what happens is we actually overlook the small micro changes along the way. We don't think about the compounding interest that happens when we just stack our wins, stack our dreams every day. And so what I encourage is, number one, you have to have a goal or a vision that's built on something bigger than just, right, a New Year's resolution. Like, it has to come from a place of true desire, true change, give a damn, care more about less, focus, right? Then I have to have a system that allows me to move towards that every day. Not once a quarter, not twice a year, not just on New Year's, but that goal has me every single day, and you can see it in the fiber of my day. And when you do that, it becomes less about the achievement of the goal, and it becomes more about who I have to become, so that that's just a byproduct of who I became.
Can we rewind a little bit though? Like, can we go back one individual step? Because we've obviously that's one thing I love when you say that, is like the give a damn, and you need to figure out what obviously how you cultivate your energy essentially around a certain thing is based on the give a damn that you have around that, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got the process and the system in place, okay? And is this the structure of the workshop that you're doing at the moment, or that you're running? Is like, again, I know this is not the most elegant way to go into what you've got going on at the moment, like from a like a training or whatever you're doing with it, but like, isn't that like the structure that you put in place? You help people find that desire, you help them find what their give a damn is, then you've got the structure in place for it, because that's the part of this that I got way better at when I was doing it through you. Like, a good example, like we there's so much noise, and I know, sorry, I'm down a rabbit hole now, but there's so much noise. I remember I just started doing this at the beginning of last year. Remember when I called you, I'm like, oh, I'm journaling. You're like, oh, okay, that could be good for you. That's great. Awesome. And then we just spoke about it, a week later, and you're like, how's the journaling going? I'm like, well, it's good. Like, this is what I do. And I was basically giving myself a report card on the day previously. You're like, you need to stop that.
Totally.
Just stop.
Like, this is so wrong for so many reasons.
So the infrastructure, like, it's so important. Like, I think that there's so many things out there that people can go through and they can listen to, and they can have structures in place. But I think you've got to just pick one and stick with that in order to then try and get some implementation. And what's the program that you guys have designed around that?
Well, so there's two pieces of that, right? So the first and foremost is that the Dream I Dare You book and the whole curriculum and that growth coaching is all around helping identify what is my greatest dream, what is the thing that I want the most, and then how do I unstuck myself from getting that, right? That's the growth coaching. But what's fascinating and what happened in this last year, Ben, was actually just a byproduct of me hitting a wall of, like, I'm like you, I'm a driver. And so I don't necessarily struggle with knowing what my dream is, but I struggle with the sustainability towards it, because I'm a strong kickstart, but my consistency and follow through can really kind of ebb and flow. And what I started to realize is that I actually didn't have a morning routine that was creating the energy that was going to sustain me throughout the day. right? And so I was running sprints. I wasn't actually running a marathon. And I think for a lot of us, when we think about the dreams that we want most, the business that we want most, when we think about building wealth, when we think about taking our marriage to a whole new level, that's a marathon. Those are not sprints, right? And so for me, in my own desperation, created a morning routine and a morning process. This was after I had my 5th baby, by the way. So anyone who says, I don't have time to do this, you can come and talk with me. Because if I figured out how to do it, running a business, 5 children under the age of 9, there is literally no excuse, none, right? So I started getting up, doing a different morning routine that I actually called dream stacking. That's what I called it. I was like, I have to stack my dreams. I got to get my mind right, my heart right, and my dreams right. So in the midst of my day, in the midst of the busy, in the midst of the babies, in the midst of the crazy, I have to ensure that my mind, my heart, and a few of my activities are in alignment with where I'm going, not just responding to where I'm at, right? Because that's what most of us do. We're just responding to the market and responding to clients and responding to whatever's coming at me. And not that those things aren't hard or challenging, they are. But the reality is I need to dream bigger and louder than this life to live for, to pull me through the hardest of times. But I also have to be so focused that I know that if I do 1 to 3 things every single day that moves me towards where I want to be and not just focuses on where I'm at, then that's actually what's going to also pull me through. It will help me to act my way to a new way of thinking, act my way to a new way of feeling. And so what we call this now is Arise and Align. And it's a way to master your morning routine in 15 minutes a day that ensures that you're not only don't have the right mind, you don't just have the right mindset and heart set, but dream set, like right activity to get the aligned results that you're looking for.
Can we get your content manager to listen to this podcast? Because I have a request. I need you to I know you document it on your social and everyone needs to follow you on social because there's a part of this routine that I obviously think is still a little bit strange is the Smurf, the Smurf drink. But you and I have spoken about this a lot. And I think one of the things that is one of the most watched YouTube videos is morning routines. I think that it'd be great to document how you go through that and what you go through a day, because there's a part of that there is a process in place, but then it's actually the accountability that it then sets for you once you're doing it. Because I think I find it better after you and I have spoken about this and me kind of putting a version of this into play of my own sort of doing, and the part that I enjoy is that it simplifies it. I don't know. There's something that simplifies you to this state of calm before you get into the busy or you get into the world. It's this lack of ability also to make excuses around it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of this again is the point of a morning routine is not just for the morning routine, and right, a point of planning is not for the planning, right? It's about character. I mean, all of us, again, are living in this microwave world where he who gets there fastest wins. And it's just not the reality, even though, again, we're on social media and things can happen faster. If you go behind the scenes with people, it's been decades. It's been tons of push-ups. It's been lots of hard things. It's been small micro steps by people who were so committed to a result that the process was more about their character and less about these action steps. So why I say that, Ben, is that when I go to do planning or when I go to do my morning routine, this is so much less about action steps and it's more around developing a mindset on who do I have to become and what would that person do every single day without fail, because it's just who they are to do it, right? A person of integrity, character, resolve, grit, relentlessness, creativity, joy. And it's starting to think like that person. So you feel like that person. So you create action steps according to that. And so the point of that morning routine, Ben, isn't just to be good at the morning routine. It's so that you're good at you throughout the day, because you can access that same space in the hardest buying conversation, in the moments with your kids when they're freaking out, in the moments with your kids when you're freaking out. Like the idea here is that this isn't supposed to be just a 15-minute routine that makes me feel good in the morning. It's supposed to be a space that I learn to access throughout my day so I don't lose my cool and misalign with who I am and where I'm going. That starts to change everything.
I think that there's getting back to this whole planning element, like sitting, there's certain people that would be listening to this podcast just because of the title that I'm going to have Chris put on this, is that planning is shit. Like even that morning routine thing and sitting there and, and making a conscious decision not to get a cup of coffee and scroll through your phone. Like there's this higher level that you create for yourself. Like there's no doubt that I used to do that, get a cup of coffee, sit there and scroll through my phone. And yeah, it feels good because you think that you need to turn yourself off because you're on all the time, and you create these reasons and you create these excuses and these so quote unquote habits that, that you need to do some hard for a period of time in order to actually then appreciate how much better it's making. And those mini wins that you said, like, for example, I'm a horrible reader. Now in the morning, instead of scrolling through my phone and before I do anything, I try and read some of a book, and it's compounded into me finishing by the end of the year 5 books. And I haven't finished 5 books in my life ever.
It's amazing.
And like, I mean, I'm talking 3 or 4 pages because it takes me forever. It's ridiculous. And I've already forgot what the book is about, basically, because it takes me so long to read it. But that's not the point. Okay. Is that it's that nature of that. I wanted to do something, and now instead of social media, I do that. Like on a plane, I've made it a conscious effort to read a book, and it's just this upgrade that you can create for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you make a defining, this is hard for me to put into words, actually. Like, how do you remove yourself from the societal expectation versus what you want, Julia?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why most people aren't planning, right? So even that catchy title is to draw you in, is that right? Like we have all these tools, and the act of these tools aren't shit. It's just our interpretation around them, right? And so I think what happens is, Mark Twain says this all the time, it's not what we know that hurts us, it's what we think we know that just isn't so. And so I think when a tool doesn't work, all the time, like people will plan doesn't work. Well, it does work. You got to plan the dive the plan. And so I think that when we're considering how we approach this, right, that would tell us if it's ultimately going to work or not. Because if I'm approaching my planning and I'm comparing myself to societal norms, if I'm comparing myself to even last year, I mean, I think that's why, besides it just being hard in this economic shift in the real estate market, for most, they are comparing it to last year and the year before and the year before. And so we're completely off kilter because our goals now are built on just being better than last year, as opposed to being the best version of who we are in the current marketplace based upon where we're going. Right. So for people who are getting out of the industry right now, or, like all of a sudden just totally tapping out, I'm like, you were making convenient goals. You were making a convenient plan. You were making a plan based upon last year's number. You weren't actually making a plan based upon conviction. Right? People, it's easy to say, I want to be the best in the industry when everything's going great in the industry. But where are the people, the pioneers of an industry that go, no, I will be the best in the industry no matter what market I'm in. And I think that's what hard moments reveal. Pressure is just revealing, Ben. It's just revealing what's there. It's just bringing to the surface the thing that I haven't been willing to look at. And so I think that for me, when there is pressure, that's why I say pressure is a privilege, because it's revealing to me things that I didn't know was there all along. And so I think what happens is that the pressure that we're seeing even in your market right now is revealing those who want it for the pure motives, and those that just want it to be better than that guy, or to run from what their dad said, or to just better than last year's numbers. And okay, that's fine. And that could get you here, but that's surely not going to take you through hard moments. That's not going to take you through societal norms. Like, that's not motivating enough.
That's what I sort of wanted to segue into, is sort of this. It's funny when we do business planning with our business owners and agents, I try and open it up with saying, hey, just so you know that I'm not expecting you to tell me that you want to do more than what you did last year.
Yeah.
And there's this weight that sort of comes off their shoulders, because there is this societal expectation that you have to do more and you have to want more. And like, I honestly believe that 50, 60, 70% of the business plans that I do and the conversations I have, people tell me what I want to hear versus what they really believe.
Well, and I think that finds anybody out. Like, that's why ultimately we'll go, well, planning is shit, or process maps don't work, or that workout routine is crap, or whatever it is, well, no, actually it's not that didn't work. I didn't work. My mindset blueprint didn't work. It's not that thing didn't work. And so I think what's fascinating even about those moments that you're talking about is, for most people, and Michael Jordan says this all the time. Michael Jordan says that at a moment in his career where everything started to plateau and he got in the bus, and he said immediately he started to realize that he was comparing himself to the last game, and he was comparing himself to the other people playing on in that game. And he said, I was starting to lower my standards because I needed to be as good as my last game, and I needed to be as good as my competition. And he said he made an intentional decision that no longer would he ever compare himself to the things around him, that he would only compete against the best version of himself in any given moment. Meaning now I'm not competing against yesterday or them or anyone else. I'm competing against me being the best version of me. And that's when his career took off.
So is that like, you and I had a conversation before this about an individual habit that I need to sort of bring back into my lifestyle, and like, how do you remind yourself in the moment, Julia, around that? Like we spoke about setting alarms on a phone, 4 times a day to give direction to an individual thing that I want to focus on or that I need to, and like it's just a behavior. It's a behavior change or a behavior course correct. Like that's all good and well for Michael Jordan to say, like in the moment, probably reflecting maybe, like, was he really doing that though? Like, how did he really do that in the moment? Like making sure that he was only comparing himself to his very best self, and how did he find his very best self? And there's so many things in there that I ask questions about, or am I thinking about it too much?
Well, I think that it's a both and, right? Like I think sometimes it's like Maverick, right? Don't think, just do. Like just stop thinking and just get after it. It's like doing a push-up. You're like, well, how will I know if I'm giving it my best? You literally you'll do one push-up and you will fall and you will physically not be able to get up and do another one. At some level, you don't know that until you get down and you do it, right? And then in that moment you go, okay, is this all that I can do, or can I do one more? Nobody else will know, Ben. Nobody else knows. If you have one more thing to give, you will always know. And I think that that's where we're missing it, right? Like the fire that we're wanting is in that last push-up, quote unquote, that we're avoiding, because it reveals a man to himself. And so if I know that I'm putting it all out there, then I am actually proud of myself. But if I leave that gym, if I leave that conversation and I go, dang it, there was one more in me, then the next time, do one more. Like, don't shortchange yourself. And I think that that's the problem with the self-help world and the motivational industry. I mean, it's a $6 billion industry, but what happens is I'm outsourcing my fire. I'm asking you, trainer, you, coach, you, book, to be my accountability. And then I'm outsourcing my accountability when I've got to learn how to do that. What Michael Jordan had was his own accountability and internal fire. He believed it before anyone else saw it. He could tap into that before without anyone needing him to convince. Now, he did have coaches around him that helped him with skill and like, ooh, move your leg a little bit this way and shoot a little bit that way. I mean, that's the power in theory of a coach, is more around technique, not accountability, right? Technique is brilliant. We need coaches around us to go, if you did a push-up this way, if you made a cold call that way, if you had a conversation this way, like it's a little bit of a technique play that a coach could say, adjust your sail just enough, but the coach shouldn't be there to make us accountable. That has to come internally. That's what Michael Jordan had. That's what Muhammad Ali had. That's what some of the greatest had, is they had incredible coaches around them, skilling them in technique, but they didn't depend on them as their accountability.
There's a part of this though that, like, from a coaching perspective, that sort of popped into my head when you were saying the push-up thing. Like, let's say that you're doing push-ups and you can't physically do any more, and you you've given it your actual all. Is knowing your own personal belief, is knowing the best you. Is it when you've got a personal trainer that's there and you get up and he's like, you could have gone one more. It's like is knowing, like, not listening to that noise. Does that make sense? Like you get feedback. Like there's all these people around you all the time that give you that are critiquing you at every moment. Like it's like, I know I gave that my all. No, I think you've got more in you. I think like, fuck you, dude. Like, how the fuck do you know?
Well, I think for me, everything. So this is the game that I play. Everything that's happening around me is forging strength in my own conviction. So let's say, we're just using for the sake of the argument, because push-ups is an easy one, right? Or cold calls, right? Let's say I make 20 cold calls, okay? And I get done with 20 and I'm like, dang, I am done for the day. And you go, you could have done one more. I got to sit with that for a second and I got to go, ooh, is that true? Is he shining the light on my potential? Or did I give it my all? And if I go, no, that was literally all I could do, then I'm proud. But if you were someone who's actually is for me, is a voice that is for me, right? I can't listen to the critics. I can't. But if I know that Ben is actually here because he is here as a voice shining the light of potential on me, then if he says that, I go, he's not wrong. So next time I'm going to do one more. So it's a little bit less about like you take in what you're hearing, but you don't have to make it your answer because it's their answer, but it can refine your answer. Does that make sense? And then it builds the strength of resolve. And Gary Vaynerchuk says this all the time, but he says, I don't do it for the lovers. I don't do it for the haters. I do it for the love of the game. Yep. Like, I don't do it for you to say whether it was good or not. I don't do it because, I'm afraid you're not going to like it. I do it because I can't not do it. Yeah. I do it because I want to make me proud. I do it because even if I fail, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do it again. I'm doing the things that I want to be doing and I'm doing it with my whole heart. Yeah. That would change the world. Like, that mentality is what would change the world.
It's kind of a conversation that you and I just had. Like, legitimately, we started the conversation. This is a friend's catch up. How you doing? You doing good? And then by the end of it, it's a coaching session that Julia's giving me. Okay, because she can't not.
I cannot. But I think that's what's so interesting. And I think, people have to recognize that I think the gift that I have, Ben, is I see pure potential. Like, I know how to see that. And so when you get close enough to people who can see pure potential, which I feel like is in all of us, it just whether or not we use that gift, is that I have an ability to draw that out in people. Right. And so when people say, well, don't be the coach. I'm not a coach. I don't like to be a coach. I didn't choose this career. I just know how to see potential and how to call it out in people. Now, I literally had someone the other day say, well, you're coaching. I just need some more accountability. I was like, well, then A, you missed the whole point of this. And B, call someone else. I am not here to keep you accountable. I'm here to hold up the mirror so you see your pure potential. And that motivates you so much. That creates such a hunger and an appetite to be the best version of you. But I'm not here to do the push-ups for you. I'm here to give you the potential that you could do the push-ups. But I'm not going to do them for you. No. And no, I'm not going to count them for you. Like, no, I'm not going to do that either.
I just had it's a conversation that I had with an agent the other day that goes, well, what are you doing to market the home? It's like, no, that's your job. Otherwise I'd sell the home myself. So I want to end this. I want to round this out, and I want to make sure that that people know where to start, Julia, if they want to. They're sitting there at the moment. You're the first episode of our podcast for the year. From a guest perspective, and they're sitting there like, I haven't planned. They're feeling bad about maybe not planning. They're feeling like, I don't need to. I'm very clear on my goals, but they're really not. They're creating excuses. There's all the stuff going on that happens at the beginning of the year, because whilst people can get very clear, some people are very good at making a plan and very clear, maybe not good in the execution of it, but they can get very clear about it, and they can take that commercial holiday and they can actually turn it into something, right? Maybe the execution needs help or whatever it is, or maybe they're very, very good at putting that part of their life. But there's some people that'll be listening to this going, I fucking hate this time of year. This sucks. Like, do I really have to reflect? Do I really have to plan? Like, where do they start, Julia? What's the first step here, and how do they implement?
Man, it is such a big question. I think it has to come from an invitation to a different mindset. I truly believe that our future is going to be built on the shoulders of the people with the most convicted dreams, the boldest dreams. And I don't think that has to do with your race or your industry or your age, male, female. Like, it doesn't actually matter. Dreams are, they're not picky on who they pick. It's in all of us. And I would say to that person from a high level is that your dreams matter, and your understanding of those dreams matter. So if the only thing you do this year is to learn how to train yourself to go, actually, I have to get back in touch with not even just a goal, but a dream bigger than this life to live for, that's your first step. If you actually don't have a dream that gets you out of bed in the morning, that pulls you through the hardest of times, that's bigger than just more money this year, right? Yeah. If you don't have that, that is your first step. You go, well, where the heck do I start? You buy my book. I don't know. Yeah. Like, no, but start. I was just gonna say, like, that has to be a bigger, like, so that's your first step. Like, your intention this year, how pick a word or pick intention, is to dream bold. And I don't mean dream big. This is not about dreaming big. This is about dreaming bold. And so your goal this year is to realign with a bold dream, right? How you get there is unique to you. It's just unique. It's just unique to you. Now, once you identify that and you land on it, then the process is, instead of just planning and going at it the way you've always done, I would consider breaking that down into bite-sized pieces, right? We do 6-month and quarterly and monthly. But what's even more powerful than all of those techniques, which they're important and please use them, they help break it down, is the dream stacking, Ben. It's what I write. I mean, if you look at my journal, check out this page. Everybody has time to do it. You could do this within 5 minutes every single day. But up in this corner, it actually talks about 3 dreams that you're going to stack today. What does that mean? It means that in the midst of the busy, in the midst of the reaction, in the midst of the email, I need to do 3 things every day that will move me towards my dream, right? Then you kind of take your eyes off that big picture and you're going to get into your day-to-day and you're going to develop the mindset and the heart set and the dream set every single day to keep doing the things that are going to get you ultimately to where you want to be. And you remind yourself that as you're laying those dreams, as you're stacking those wins, that sure, it just looks like you're laying bricks, but what you have to remember is you're building a cathedral. You're building towards your dream. You're building something bigger than yourself. That's how you start to bridge the gap.
It's amazing the clarity that you sort of like you get from just this conversation for me as well. Like it's like planning is such a daunting element, and I've always found it very daunting because getting clear or making sure that like I've always been conscious of, is that the right thing I should be wanting, or whatever it is. Like it's always been pretty critical of myself, of the things that I actually want or the things that move me. And the one thing that I think that for me, if going into planning, is if it just all starts with just get clear on that dream and what it looks like. And then if this intrigues you enough and if you really do want it, I think the other stuff could come relatively naturally from there with the system that you have in place, like with that dream stacking each day. I think it could actually come really easily. But if you just started at that point.
Agreed. I think, again, the tools will work on the right mindset. But for most of us, we're putting tools on a faulty mindset and like, I don't know that I believe it. And I don't know, like said nobody who's achieved anything great. And so you have to rectify the doubt. You have to rectify the fear. You have to heal the pain, right? Like if you're like, well, I don't know that I feel worthy, then there's your next step. You have to rectify that. Or Ben, if you go, well, I feel like my dreams might be selfish. Well, great. That's your next step. That is your next step. Right.
Yeah. But I also think that the motivation industry, like in the self-help industry, has created this picture in my mind anyway, speaking for myself, is that I look at planning like such a daunting task, like because of the business plans that I've been involved in the past and the stuff that I've listened to. I think about it as like a 25 million page document where you've got everything in your life individually itemized and you know exactly what you want and when you want it and why it's good for you, and you've got this unbelievable picture. Whereas really just start with the dream. Mm-hmm. Get clear on that.
Get clear on that. And then again, when you work it backwards, right? Like I think, again, if you're talking about big work, like don't get me wrong, Cammie and my team, I mean, now we're a team of 8. We have spreadsheets, we have Trello boards, we have initiatives, we've got these color coordinated. But what we have to do, because not everyone's brain works that, for Cammie, that's brilliant. She gets it. She's operational though. So for my operational mindsets, that is crazy important. Now, what's brilliant for her though, is I have to always push her on, but Cammie, if you know that we can hit that goal, then it's not bold enough. So I take hers and I expand it because I don't want to actually just have goals like, if we're not failing, we're not dreaming bold enough. Failure means we're finding our edge. We're pushing ourselves. If I don't lift till failure, right? If I don't actually go beyond what I think I'm capable of doing, then it's not really a dream. It's just one more thing that I'm going to do, and I will be underwhelmed while I do it. So for all the pieces, again, what I'm speaking to is for us visionaries, our process looks very different than the operational minds, which is very different than the implementers who, right, like the action plan. So I think it's important to understand who you are and how you're wired when you consider how you plan too, right? And it's sometimes, again, we're just trying to fit into the societal norm. Well, stop doing that. Yeah. And I know that again, coming from a visionary, well, stop doing that. Well, what do I do? Well, there's your next step. Like identify who you are. Identify, are you a visionary? Are you an integrator? Are you an implementer? Right? Then from there you go, I got to figure out, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? How do I see? Do I see visions? Do I see things linear? Do I see like that? We spend so much time figuring out operational business strategy that we have no idea who we are. We're not understanding how we view the world and how we view dreams and how, so it's like when you start to understand all of those pieces, then you can actually start to win at your own game because you understand your game.
Well, I think that that's a lovely place to leave things. Best of luck, everybody, in the daunting task that it is. But Julia, obviously, we always link everything below, and we make sure that they're able to get it. But if someone needs the journal or someone wants to, be part of the programs that you're building, you guys have. I think I've gotten to experience, Julia in her absolute raw form, the team of one plus Travis and the kids, all the way now to the team that you've built and the stuff that you're putting out and the quality of that. And I think that it's a tool that I'm very grateful for. But now that you've put it to have way more access to so many more people, where is the best place to find your resource?
Yeah, so we just launched the Master Your Morning Routine in 15 minutes. So if you go to thejuliagentry.com/align, you can get a whole free guide. I mean, I basically give you a 15-minute run through of and a PDF of my journal, and it gives you the entire process. It walks you through that. So it's a gift that we want to give people this year to get started, right? Mm-hmm. 2 hardest days, Ben, are the day that you start and the day that you want to quit. And so our gift to this world is if you're committed to starting and you're committed to not stopping, you don't know how, you don't know the in-between, but you're committed to those 2 things, go to that site and you can download this free video and PDF to support you.
Thank you as always. We'll see you back on Rethink Real Estate soon. So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.